Gil Narvaez with Fortitude Consulting, and we are here to talk about our targets. Really excited to finally see these things come to fruition, and I wanted to go ahead and give a breakdown of why we designed the target the way we did, the why behind it, and some things you can be thinking about when you run drills and actually train on it, right? So we'll start up here at the top. The logo that we put on there was not just a branding thing, right? The shape that we went with, or rather the size that we went with for the actual circle of the logo, is the 9-ring in a B8. So if you were looking to do some work on a B8 9-ring and in, you can actually utilize this circle right here, which is approximately about 4 inches. So if you had a drill that you were running that required a 4-inch target, whether that be a 4-inch square or a 4-inch circle, then the logos actually got you covered right there, right? So going ahead and dropping on down, what is the reason for this shape head box? Typically when you are designing a target, you see head boxes being the traditional 3.5, or I'm sorry, the 3x5 boxes that you see in the head. Essentially what we did was we took a 3x5 box and we cut the corners off of the 3x5 box. From a performance development standpoint, the reason why we took the corners off of the 3x5 box is for a right-handed shooter, if they don't have things completely dialed in exactly the way they need to, you typically see those shots coming off low and to the left. For a left-handed shooter, if they don't have things dialed in and in place from a grip perspective, you typically see those shots coming in low and to the right. So by taking away that little section on each corner, this is kind of an incentive from a performance standpoint that your technique has to be absolutely on point in order for those rounds to go exactly where you want in that 3x5 triangle, if you will. That's from a performance standpoint. From a real-world practical standpoint, why did we decide to go with that shape? Well, if you look at the dimensions, if you will, of an ocular cavity, ocular and nasal cavity, and we were to superimpose that 3x5 triangle on my head, this measurement right here is approximately 4.5, 5 inches, and down to the nasal cavity would be right around 3 inches. So this simulates what would potentially be one of the most difficult shots that you could take, an actual effective headshot on a living, breathing human being. Coming down to the USPSA classic target, why did we go with the classic target versus the traditional metric or humanoid shaped target with the the rectangular A-zone? The reason why we went with this one, again, from a performance standpoint, trailing up to the upper part of the A-zone is a little bit thinner. You have a little bit less area, if you will, to impact. So you really need to be on point from the standpoint of your visual focal points, as well as your marksmanship. And anything that you can do on this A-zone here, it's going to be pretty, it's going to translate very, very well to doing it on a larger A-zone. But why this particular shape? Why not just do a smaller rectangle? Well, one of the things that I like to convey, one of the pieces of knowledge that I like to convey to folks when they're training with me from a personal protection standpoint, is that the area in the human body that we are trying to affect with gunfire, all of the good stuff, if you will, that will actually stop that human being is typically going to be below the chin and in between the shoulders. Well, if you look at the shape of the actual A-zone, I happen to have one here, if I take that and I superimpose that on the chest of a human being, you can see that this shape lends itself to actually follow along the lines of below the chin, the neckline, and in between the shoulders, affecting all of the good stuff that needs to be effective in order to go ahead and stop a living, breathing human being. So as you can see, from the standpoint of both performance development as well as thinking in terms of personal protection and actually putting energy on people in order and with the desired effect of actually stopping them, these two shapes lend themselves to both of those points and both of those elements. Why did we go ahead and give you reduced sized USPSA classic targets? The intent behind the reduced size targets on either side was A, for zeroing purposes, B, to give you some options along the lines of an accelerator drill, if you will. One of the problems that I've encountered with clients, particularly those who only have access to an indoor range, is that they've got one target that can be set at one particular distance, so it makes it somewhat problematic for them to do distance change-up exercises or drills like the accelerator drill, where you'll have a target at 5-yard lines, a target at 15-yard lines, and a target at 25-yard lines, for example. This gives you the ability to be able to run those types of drills, simulating distance change-up by having different size targets. For example, you could end up running this out to the 5 or the 7-yard line and shoot at the large or the full size USPSA Classic, come up here to the reduced size USPSA Classic, and then transition over to the 1.5-inch circle in the center of the triangle. This is just one example of a way that you can use the different shapes, or you can actually use the logo as well as an additional target. But it's just one example of the ways that you can use those shapes to actually simulate some sort of distance change up at an indoor range where you're limited on the number of backers that you can utilize and the distance that you're going to be able to run this target at. That's pretty much the breakdown on the front of the target, pretty much the breakdown on the why behind us choosing this particular shape and this shape up here for the headshot, if you will. I hope you guys found that interesting. I hope you decide to go ahead and cop some of these and go ahead and run them in your own practice. If you do, please go ahead and video it, tag us on social media, let us know what you think about it. Let us know the drills that you're running on it and the benefit that you are getting out of running these targets. That's pretty much all I got. Remember, train, prepare, prevail. I'm out.